Have you ever noticed how the people you help the most seem to respect you the least? Think about it for a second. That friend who always forgets their wallet at dinner. That family member who needs just one more loan. That coworker who knows you'll cover the coffee, the lunch, the ride. You keep showing up, keep paying, keep being the reliable one. And somewhere along the way, the thank you stopped feeling genuine and started feeling automatic, like they're reading from a script they've already memorized. Then one day you can't help. Maybe you're tight on cash yourself, or you finally built up the courage to say no, and suddenly the warmth disappears. They get cold, distant. They stop calling as much. And you're left standing there thinking, wait, was I only valuable when I was useful? Here's the part that really stings. You thought generosity would make people love you. You thought being the one who always gives would make you essential, respected, maybe even cherished. Instead, you feel invisible, resentful, and if we're being brutally honest, a little broke. Your bank account is lighter, your stress is heavier, and the people you bent over backwards for have moved on like you were a free trial that expired. If any part of that landed in your chest like a punch you weren't ready for, then you need to hear what Machiavelli tried to warn people about 500 years ago. He said something that sounds almost cruel on the surface. A ruler should never be too generous with money, not because he hated kindness, but because he understood something most of us are terrified to admit. Constant generosity doesn't make people love you. It makes them dependent on you, then bored with you, and eventually angry at you when you can't keep feeding them. You've felt this, haven't you? Maybe you were always the one picking up the tab, lending money to family who swore they'd pay you back, covering that coworker who was short just this once. At first, it felt good. You felt like the responsible one, the successful one, the person who had their life together while everyone else was barely keeping it together. You felt needed, important, but then slowly something shifted. The thank you so much became can you just, and you know I'm good for it. The gratitude turned into expectation. And inside, in that quiet place you don't talk about, you started feeling smaller, used, trapped in a role you never consciously agreed to play. And here is the part that makes this whole thing so confusing. The world will call you selfish the moment you stop. That's why this topic cuts so deep. Never be generous sounds like villain advice, like something a cold-hearted person would say. But stay with me here, because Machiavelli wasn't telling you to become a monster. He was telling you that if you don't control how you use money, other people will control you with it. And when the generosity finally dries up, because it always does, they won't respect you for what you gave. They'll resent you for what you stopped giving. Let's unpack what Machiavelli actually said, but translate it into plain modern life terms that make sense for someone dealing with rent. Bills, maybe kids, maybe debt, maybe trying to build something that doesn't crumble every time life gets hard. In The Prince, he talks about liberality, which is just an old word for generosity. He says if a leader tries to be known as generous, they'll spend too much, run out of resources, and then be forced to take from people in other ways just to survive. The people might praise the generosity at first, but when the bill comes due, when the taxes go up, when the squeeze happens, they'll hate him for it. He ends up poor, desperate, and deeply unpopular. On the other hand, a leader who's careful with money, who might even seem a bit stingy at first, gets criticized in the beginning, but over time, he can defend the kingdom, handle emergencies, and doesn't need to bleed his people dry. So in the long run, they respect him more, even if they didn't love him immediately. Now, you're not ruling Florence. You're not managing a kingdom. You're dealing with a mortgage or rent that keeps going up. You're managing groceries that somehow cost twice what they did 3 years ago. Maybe you're trying to build a business or crawl out of the financial hole your 20s dug for you. But the principle Machiavelli laid out is exactly the same. If your generosity isn't sustainable, it's not generosity. It's self-sabotage dressed up as kindness. It's you lighting yourself on fire to keep other people warm, and then wondering why you're the only one covered in burns. Think about where your money actually goes. Not the big noble stuff people post about online to look good. I'm talking real life. The cousin who just needs help this month, every month. The friend who mysteriously forgets their card at every dinner. The coworker who loves when you cover the Uber, the coffee, the little things that add up. And don't worry, I got it, that you say reflexively, even when your own account is looking thinner than you'd like to admit. Or maybe it's the relationship where you're funding the lifestyle paying most of the bills, buying gifts to keep the peace so they don't beg, so they stay, so the conflict doesn't explode and force you to face what's really happening. On paper, you look generous. On paper, you're the good one. But in reality, you're funding their comfort and your own silence. You're paying to avoid hard conversations. You're spending money to buy yourself the illusion that everything's fine. Machiavelli would look at that situation and say, this is exactly how a good person loses power. You're bleeding out your resources, not on strategy, not on building real stability, not on becoming stronger, but on keeping other people temporarily pleased. And the moment you can't do it anymore, the moment the well runs dry, they turn. Not always viciously, not always with drama, but they turn. They get cold. They pull away. They find someone else to latch onto. They complain to mutual friends that you changed, that you're not who you used to be. And you're left sitting there with a smaller bank account, a bigger knot in your stomach, and the sinking realization that you were never actually respected. You were just useful. So what's the alternative? Are you supposed to become some cold, miserly robot who never helps anyone, who watches people struggle and just shrugs? No. The lesson here is sharper and more nuanced than that. Stop using generosity as a way to buy love, approval, or peace. Start using money in a way that protects your power, your future, and your sanity. Be generous, absolutely, but in a way that's strategic and sustainable, not desperate and draining. And that starts with something that might sting a little when you first admit it to yourself. You need to acknowledge where your kindness is really just fear wearing a disguise. Fear of conflict. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of losing people. Fear of someone being angry with you or disappointed in you or thinking less of you. You say yes with your wallet because you're terrified of what happens if you say no with your mouth. And that fear, that specific vulnerability, is exactly how you get controlled. Let me give you a mental picture that might help this land. Imagine your life as a fortress, your own personal castle. Your income, your savings, your investments, your skills, your ability to earn, that's your fortress. Money is one of the walls protecting everything inside. It doesn't solve every problem, but if those walls are cracked and crumbling, anyone can walk in and push you around. When you're constantly generous with your money in this chaotic, unplanned, emotionally reactive way, you're literally taking bricks out of that wall and handing them to other people. Here, take this. I hope you like me. I hope you don't leave. I hope you see I'm a good person. Eventually, your wall is so low, so weak, that when life attacks, and it will a medical emergency, a job loss, a market crash, a divorce, a car that dies at the worst possible time, you have nothing left to protect yourself. You're exposed, vulnerable. And here is where Machiavelli gets brutally honest in a way that makes people uncomfortable. People respect strength more than they respect softness. They might like your softness. They might enjoy it, benefit from it, take advantage of it, but they feel safer around your strength. They lean on the person who has their own life handled first, not the person who's constantly scrambling and stressed, but still trying to save everyone else. So how do you actually put this into practice without becoming bitter, without shutting everyone out, without turning into the kind of person you wouldn't want to be around? Let's build some rules, real-world rules you can actually use starting today. First, never be generous with money you can't comfortably lose. That sounds obvious, but watch how often you violate it. If helping someone means you can't pay your own bills on time, can't build your emergency fund, can't invest in your own future, you're not being noble. You're making yourself weaker so someone else can feel better right now. That's not honorable or admirable. That's financially unstable. A financially fragile person cannot truly help anyone long term. Your oxygen mask first isn't selfish. It's strategic. It's intelligent. It's what actually allows you to show up for people who genuinely need you. Second, be generous with what costs you little, but means a lot to others. And be extremely cautious with what costs you a lot, but barely changes their situation. Sometimes the best generosity isn't paying their way. It's sharing information they didn't have access to. It's connecting them to an opportunity they wouldn't have found alone. It's helping them think differently about their problem. It's giving them a ride while you're heading that direction anyway, or spending real time listening when they're going through something hard. Your knowledge, your perspective, your network, your genuine encouragement, those things can be priceless, and they don't drain your bank account. They don't leave you anxious at 3 in the morning, wondering how you're going to cover next month. Third, if your generosity is invisible, it's not building anything except resentment. This one sounds cold, but think about it seriously. Machiavelli understood that perception shapes reality. If you're going to give, and it's a significant sacrifice, at least make sure it clearly establishes a boundary and tells a story about what this means. This is special. This isn't the default. This has a purpose and an endpoint. For example, instead of secretly paying someone's debt over and over and over until you're bitter and broke, you might say, I'll help this one time so you can reset and get your feet under you. But I need you to handle it differently going forward, because I can be your permanent safety net. You're not just handing over money. You're defining reality. You're making it clear this is an exception, not your new job description. Fourth, never fund laziness or a pattern of bad decisions. If someone's life is a constant cycle of crisis, trauma, poor choices, and zero effort to change, your money will not fix that. It will deepen it. It will enable it. It will make it worse while making you poorer. Think back through your life. Is there someone who always seems to be in some mess? Always almost out of it, but never quite stable. You've given loans, maybe several. They promise the same thing every single time. This is the last time, I swear. I've learned my lesson. You want to believe them because you care about them, because you remember who they used to be, or who you hope they could become. But patterns don't lie. Machiavelli would tell you straight, you're not helping them. You're rewarding their lack of discipline. Real help, the kind that actually creates change, has accountability attached to it. Fifth, never let generosity replace the hard conversations you need to have. It's so much easier to throw money at a problem than to say, no, I'm not okay with how this is going. You pay to keep the peace. You buy the expensive gift instead of addressing the growing distance in the relationship. You cover their rent instead of saying we need a completely different arrangement here. You pay for the weekend getaway instead of dealing with how exhausted and resentful you've actually become. That's not kindness. That's avoidance with a price tag attached. That's you spending money to buy yourself permission to not face what's real. Here's what shifts everything. Stop thinking of yourself as the person who always rescues everyone, and start becoming the person whose life is so stable, so strong, so well managed that your presence changes lives more than your wallet ever could. Be the friend who tells the hard truth with love. Be the parent who provides structure and wisdom, not just cash whenever someone's struggling. Be the partner who helps build a shared future, not just pays for a present that's slowly falling apart. Be the colleague who shares insight and opens doors, not just covers the bill at every lunch. When you make that identity shift, when you stop measuring your worth by how much you give away and start measuring it by how much strength you've built, everything changes. The right people stay. The wrong people fade. And you finally get to breathe without that constant knot of anxiety in your chest. Every time your phone buzzes with someone else's emergency, it somehow always becomes your responsibility. So here is the question Machiavelli would ask you right now if he were sitting across from you. Are you doing this from strength or from fear? The next time your hand moves toward your wallet, out of pure reflex, out of habit, out of that old familiar pattern, pause for just one moment. Ask yourself that question. Am I doing this because I genuinely want to and can afford to? Or am I doing this because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? If the answer is fear, you already know what needs to change. You've always known. You just needed permission to stop pretending otherwise.